Welcome back to Tech Stack for all you tech enthusiasts. This is part 9 of our Angular 22 series. In this video, we'll learn about template-driven forms and their validation. First, we'll understand what a template-driven form is and how it works in Angular. Angular provides 3 main approaches for working with forms: template-driven forms, reactive forms, and signal forms. In this video, we'll focus on template-driven forms and learn how to create and validate forms using the HTML template. Open the Pages folder in the integrated terminal. We'll create our template-driven form component here. Run ngGC template form to create the template-driven form component. This may take a little time while Angular generates the required files. Meanwhile, let's understand what a template-driven form is. A template-driven form is a form approach in Angular where most of the form logic is handled directly in the HTML template. We use Angular directives such as ngModel to connect form fields with our component data. Open approutes.ts so we can add the route for our template-driven form component. Copy the existing route and paste it below. Update the path to template form so we can access our template-driven form page through this route. Update the component to template form, so this route will display our template-driven form component. Open app.html so we can add a navigation link for the template form page. Copy the existing navigation item and paste it below. We'll update it for the template form page. Update the router link to template form, so the navigation link opens our template-driven form page. Now, update the text to template form, so the navigation link clearly shows the name of our page. For setting up our template-driven form, open templateform.ts. Create an empObj. We'll use it to store the employee's form data. Add a name property and set its initial value to an empty string. Add a role property and set its initial value to an empty string. Add a department property and set its initial value to an empty string. Add a salary property and set its initial value to 0. Add an isActive property and set its initial value to false. Add forms module to the imports array because we need it to use Angular's template-driven form features, including ngModel. Copy this empObj. We'll provide it to ChatGPT to generate the HTML form based on these fields. Copy the prompt and paste it into ChatGPT to generate the HTML form for us. Don't worry, I'll provide the prompt in the video description so you can copy and use it directly. Copy the generated HTML and paste it into templateform.html. Run ngserve. It will take some time to start the application. Once it's running, we'll check our HTML form in the browser. Application is now running. Copy the URL and open it in your browser to check the form. Click on Template Form to open the template-driven form page. As you can see, we have a perfect and clean user interface for our template-driven form. Close all the open tabs in Visual Studio Code and open templateform.ts. We'll bind each field of the empObj to its corresponding field in the HTML form. Open templateform.html so we can start binding the empObj fields to the form controls. Add ngModel to the name text box and bind it to the name property of our empObj. An error occurred because every control using ngModel inside a form needs a name attribute. Let's add the name attribute to the text box so Angular can properly track this form control. As you can see, the error is now fixed because we added the required name attribute. Add the name attribute to the role field so Angular can track this form control as well. Add the name attribute to the department field as well so Angular can track this form control correctly. Add the name attribute to the salary field as well, so Angular can track it as part of the form. Move to the isActive field and check its name attribute. It already contains the name attribute, so we don't need to add it again. We need to add ngModel to the remaining fields as well, so each form control is properly bound to the corresponding property in our empObj. Bind the role field to the role property of the empObj using ngModel. Bind the department field to the department property of the empObj using ngModel. Bind the salary field to the salary property of the empObj using ngModel. Use ngModel on the isActive field and connect it with the isActive property of our empObj. Since we have two radio buttons, apply ngModel to both of them and bind them to the same isActive property. Open templateForm.ts and create a function called saveEmployee. We'll use this function to handle the form submission. Before moving ahead, as you know, we've started our Angular 22 series, from beginner to advanced. Learn practical skills to grow your development career. Subscribe and join the journey. Create a constant called form data. Assign this .empObj to form data, so we can work with the employee data submitted through the form. Use console.log to display form data in the browser console, so we can check the values submitted from the form. Copy the saveEmployee function name and use it on the button, so the function will be called when we submit the form. Set the button type to button, so it behaves as a regular button. Add a click event to the button and call the saveEmployee function, so it runs when the button is clicked. Let's test the form by entering some values and clicking the Save button. Inspect the element and open the browser console, so we can see the form values printed by console log. Enter values in all the form fields and click the Save button to submit the data. Perfect. As you can see, all the form values are correctly captured and displayed in the console. As you can see, the value for each field is correct and matches the data we entered in the form. Let's apply form validation. First, add the required attribute to the input field. This will make the field mandatory. Add minlength and set it to 4, so the input must contain at least 4 characters. Add a new div below the input field. We'll use it to display the validation message. Add the Bootstrap text danger class to this, so the validation message will appear in red. Add AP tag inside it and write validation message. This is required. For validation, we need a template reference variable. Let's add one using the hash symbol and give it a name so we can access the form control in the template. Assign the template reference variable to ngModel. This gives us access to the form controls validation state in the template. We can display the validation information as JSON using the template reference variable. To do this, add JSON pipe to the imports array. Add interpolation to display the template reference variable in the HTML. Access name.errors through the template reference variable to see the validation errors. Add the JSON pipe to format name.errors as readable JSON. For now, comment out the p tag containing the this is required message, and let's test the validation output. You can see the JSON shows required true. Now, let's enter some text in the field. You can see the JSON now shows the min-length validation error because the entered text is shorter than 4 characters. As you can see, the validation is working perfectly. Angular is correctly detecting the required and minimum length validation errors. Add an if condition to check whether the required validation error exists in name.errors. Inside the if block, add a p tag with the message "This is required." This message will be displayed when the required validation fails. Copy the existing if block and paste it below for the min-length validation. Replace required with min-length in the condition, so it checks for the minimum length validation error. Add a p tag inside the if block for the minimum length validation message. Add message, minimum 4 characters required. This will be shown when the input has fewer than 4 characters. Remove the name errors JSON output and test the validation again. This is required. Message is showing because the field is empty. Now, let's enter some characters. Minimum length message is now showing. Our validation is working perfectly. We'll add the required attribute, a template reference variable, and a validation message to all the remaining fields. Add the required attribute to the role field to make it mandatory. Add the required attribute to the department field to make it mandatory. Add the required attribute to the salary field as well, so this field is mandatory. We'll add a template reference variable to all the remaining form fields, so we can access their validation state in the template. Add a template reference variable to the role field and assign it to ngModel. Add a template reference variable to the department field and assign it to ngModel. Add a template reference variable to the salary field and assign it to ngModel. We'll add validation messages for each field, so users can clearly see what needs to be corrected. Copy the existing validation message and paste it below the role field. Remove the min-length validation from the role field, since we only need the required validation here. Update the validation condition to use role.errors, so it checks the validation state of the role field. Copy this validation message and paste it below the department field. Update the validation condition to use department.errors, so it checks the validation state of the department field. Copy the validation message and paste it below the salary field. Update the validation condition to use salary.errors, so it checks the validation state of the salary field. Let's test the validation for all the fields and make sure the messages appear correctly. Fill in all the required fields. The validation errors should disappear once all the required values are entered. We'll disable the button until all the required fields are filled in correctly. We'll add a template reference variable to the form tag, so we can access the form's validation state. Add a template reference variable called form using the hash symbol on the form tag. Assign the form template reference variable to NgForm, so we can access the form's validation state. Add the disabled attribute to the button, so we can control it based on the form's validation state. Set the button's disabled property to form.invalid and test it. The button should remain disabled while the form is invalid. As you can see, the button is disabled while the form is invalid. Now, let's fill in all the required fields and check the button again. As you can see, the button is now enabled because all the required fields have been filled correctly. We'll check whether the form is valid in TypeScript. Let's pass the form as a parameter to the saveEmployee function. Open templateForm.ts and update the saveEmployee function to receive the form as a parameter. Add form NgForm as the parameter, so Angular knows that we're passing a template-driven form to the function. Add a console.log to display the form object in the browser console. Use form.invalid to check whether the form is currently invalid. Comment out the other code and test the form again to check the form.invalid value. Let's fill in all the required fields and check the form's validation status again. Before clicking the button, inspect the element and open the browser console so we can check the form's validation status. You can see the value is false, which means the form is valid. This is the end of this part. We covered template-driven forms, including data binding and form validation. In the next video, we'll learn about reactive forms. If you're passionate about learning new technologies, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Tech Stack, and keep learning new skills. Thank you. And remember, consistency is the key to success.